Good afternoon. Welcome to the June 30th meeting of Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm Catherine Staub, your president for about the next 45 minutes. Thank you for not applauding that. That's probably because Doug couldn't make it today. Monsignor now will share a moment of inspiration followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the four-way test. Monsignor?
There you go. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, here we go. Catherine, President Catherine, you made it. Now the gavel goes to Matt. You've been an outstanding leader. How can we ever forget that? You helped us work to reach our goals. You kept our club alive. Not only did we make it, we thrived. We've served the youth as best we could. We've honored the teachers too. We've supported every worthy cause and honored those in blue. We've raised a little money. So as this year is put to bed, it's nice to know that our budget is far from in the red. Catherine's strength is mixed with charm. She took us gently along the path now taken by Matt, who is so gently strong. Help us, Lord, to follow his lead and at his behest to be robust Rotarians indeed, to do our very best. Lord, for Catherine, gratitude fills every heart. For Matt, we pledge to do each our own part. Amen. Amen. There you go. Okay, let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Now greet one another.
Or not yet.
Thank you, Monsignor. I love original poetry. It's great. All right, we have a few guests to welcome today. So if you would please stand as I call your name. We have Elena and Viola, guests of Matt Busick. And if you recall, Viola was one of our Rotary Youth Exchange inbound students. She's back to visit, so welcome.
Thank you.
And then we have Andrew, Rachel, and Jerry, and Dennis, all guests of Jamie Boersma. Thank you to all of our guests for being here with us today. Today we wish a happy birthday to Dwight James. He is not here today, but if you see him, please wish him a happy birthday. So at this point, I would like to recognize some of our members who have made the 21-22 Rotary year a success. So first of all, and I think their names are our photos are gonna come up, but first of all, I want to thank our outgoing board members. So Cherian Koshi, Lynette Rasmussen, Bob Bedrell, and Doug Saltzgaber. Let's give them a huge round of applause. There's a lot of behind the scenes work. Those of you who have served on the board know how much behind the scenes work goes on. So I'm grateful to each of those folks for their service over the years. Thank you also to our committee chairs. Speaking of behind the scenes work, all of you know what a heavy lift it is to be part of a committee, and a committee functions best when we have great leadership from the committee chairs, and we've had some tremendous ones. So I want to thank our committee chairs for their outstanding commitment to the detailed work of the club. And I should have had people stand. So if you are here, please stand as I read your name, and just all remain standing, and we'll applaud everybody at the end. So our chair for the audit committee, Brandon Bennett. Eric Fogg for awards. Graham Gillette, communication. Jason Stuyvesant for community service. Matt Romke for international service. Scott Bennett, local scholarships. Cherry Koshi, membership development. Sherry Pike, new member orientation. Tim Lilwitz, program. Dan Conley, Rotary Youth Exchange. And Ganesh Gampat, Grants Committee. So big round of applause to all of our committee chairs. And now for some special recognition of two members of our club who have clearly exemplified the Rotary motto of service above self, not only in 21-22, but in all their years as Rotarians. So first we have the Roger T. Stetson Rotarian of the Year Award. This award is given to a member of the Rotary Club of Des Moines who has demonstrated adherence to the tenets of Rotary's four-way test in business and professional life, and in Rotary and civic activities, and has made exceptional contributions to our community and to our club. And it gives me great pleasure to award this to Jamie Boersma this year. Sorry, I forgot this part of it. Yes, the plaque. Then the plaque says, the Roger T. Stetson Rotarian of the Year 21-22 presented to Jamie Boersma for upholding and furthering the ideals of Rotary and an appreciation for exceptional contributions to maintaining Rotary Club of Des Moines engagement and service. Congratulations, Jamie. Thank you, Kitty, as always, for keeping us doing what we're supposed to be doing. So thank you, Jamie, for all you do for our club. Jamie has been a club member for 25 years. She's a Paul Harris Fellow and a past club president in 2017-18. Like many of our past presidents, she continues to stay engaged with our club to help make it the best club it can be. So thank you and congratulations. Then, next up is our Cecil Bollinger Lifetime Service Award. This award is given to a member of the Rotary Club of Des Moines who over a lifetime has demonstrated adherence to the tenets of Rotary's four-way test. There's a minimum of 10 years membership in Rotary with significant achievements both in Rotary and in the local and regional community. And today, I am delighted to honor Mike Lemaire with the Lifetime Service Award.
I don't trip over everything.
And this plaque for Mike says the Cecil Bollinger Lifetime Service Award presented to Mike Lemaire in recognition of outstanding service and dedication to our club, Rotary International, and the Rotary Way of Life. Congratulations, Mike. If you were impressed impressed with Jamie's 25 years of membership. Mike has been a member of Rotary Club of Des Moines for more than 43 years. He is a Paul Harris Fellow and served as president in 2000-2001. Mike is a humble civic leader. Thank you and congratulations, Mike. And at this point, I want to invite Tim Lilwitz to introduce today's speaker. Tim?
Thank you, President Catherine. To echo on some of President Catherine's words, today is my last day as the programs chair for the past year, turning it over to good hands of Mark Lyons to take over for next year. I know he'll do a great job, but just wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you in the club. The programs committee, if you don't know, works behind the scenes to set up all the programs throughout the year, and the chair, someone like myself, relies heavily on all of your suggestions, ideas, connections to make that happen. So thanks for everyone that helped out this year. I appreciate it. Our speaker today is Susan Aram. Susan is the executive director and one of the founders of the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust. The Sustainable Iowa Land Trust was launched in 2015 to permanently protect land to grow healthy food in Iowa. Susan cut her teeth during the 1980s farm crisis, and the lessons that she learned during that farm crisis she took with her for the rest of her life. Susan has had, she was a 1985 graduate of the University of Iowa in journalism, I just learned a few minutes ago. She's the author of 7 books, a former journalist and editor, and a lifelong community organizer. And she was explaining to me the many stops she's taken throughout her career to get where she is today. And I have no doubt she'll have an interesting presentation for us. So, Susan Aram, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for having me, folks. This is an intimidating group, I have to tell you. I know I'm talking to some of the greatest leaders in Iowa right now, so forgive me if I stutter or stammer a little bit, but I'm going to try to get through this. I cannot see my own presentation. Okay. Yes, so what is the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust? We're the only kind of nonprofit in the country that can make a forever promise on land that we don't own. That's what land trusts are in general. There are about 5 land trusts operating in Iowa now, but when we decided to start the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust and couldn't find anyone else to do what we wanted to do, we came together after about a year and a half of research and decided on this mission to permanently protect land to grow healthy food. And that's a pretty packed statement, and what we mean is table food, produce, and livestock. And what we mean is in a way that reduces our reliance on synthetic chemicals. So we're trying to get nature to work in our favor as we grow food. And ultimately what we felt this would do is solve the farm crisis for good, at least for that segment of farmers. Because what happens is we essentially take that land off the market for everything else. We take it off the market for commodity crops, and we take it off the market for housing development. And when you do that, you drop the value of it by about 40%. Now, everyone who buys and sells it will be sustainable table food farmers, or people willing to keep the land in that kind of production. And that's its own market. So we found that as a way, since debt was really driving the farm crisis of the past, we felt that this would reduce debt for farmers into the future. And that maybe the farmers who were feeding our communities might deserve that little leg up. And that's not to say anything bad about the other farmers. It's just to say that for those farmers, we could give them a little leg up. So, on every acre that we do protect, and I understand that Rotarians now have decided, come to this conclusion that the environment is one of your priorities, so I want to make sure that you understand how important this is. On every acre that we protect, we not only make it more affordable for the next generation, but we see cleaner water and air, more fresh food, a legacy for the landowners who decide to go this route, and a stronger economy. How can I say that so blatantly? Because we've learned from nature that diversity builds resilience. And I think we should learn that in our economy, diversity builds resilience too. Because we know that every time corn's at $6 a bushel, everybody's dancing, but every time it drops to $2.50, our whole economy goes into grand mal seizures. So we're thinking that if we had more diversity in that economy, we'd be able to withstand those highs and lows. Okay, so we know the challenge. We're paving over farmland at a faster pace than ever. We're still seeing rising hunger, consolidating industries on both ends of the spectrum, both from agriculture but also on food. You walk through the grocery store and you think you have a million choices. There's really about 5 corporations that own most of the food on those shelves. And of course, a worldwide climate crisis. What we see as an opportunity, the 400 million acres that are changing hands in the next decade across the country. And it's an opportunity because we know there are new farmers out there who want more choices. More choices that aren't driven by debt. And that's how you get more choices. You can choose to go organic if you have that 3 years to build the soil and if somebody gives you a break in your land costs. You have more choices if you want to experiment with a different kind of crop and you're not worried about paying a $50,000 mortgage in October on your land. You simply have more choices on how you want to grow and what you want to grow. And we know that local markets are growing exponentially faster than anything else in the food market, local and organic. So we're a solution for 3 main constituents in Iowa. One is for landowners, because they can leave a legacy that they never had the option to leave before. This is Mary Ellen. She actually chose to give us her 40 acres in southern Iowa, straight south of here actually. And she has a life estate on it, so she's still living there. She decides what gets planted, whether anyone rents it. She gets the income from the rent, etc. For those of you who are not lawyers in the crowd, that's how that works. But she's given us the deed. So the cool thing is we get to run around telling the story, and we get to throw parties on her farm and invite other landowners and inspire them by her generosity and her vision of the future. And that's certainly much more effective than me showing up, since nobody even knows how to say my last name. Bless your heart, you pulled it off. Good job. I always tell everybody it's the hardest 4-letter word you'll ever remember. Forgive me, Monsignor. And because it's a conservation donation, landowners can look at the federal law that provides for a 50% tax deduction up to 16 years for the value that they lose in that property. And a 20-year tax credit in Iowa that hangs on by a thread every year, but it's still there last time I checked. We're a solution for new farmers. You can see this little video, explainer video, on our YouTube channel. But because of those lower costs, on land that has a conservation easement that's attached to the deed, we're looking at that 35 to 40% reduction in the cost of purchasing that property. But on land that's given to us, we've developed a very innovative model for Iowa. I borrow ideas from all over the country, so I haven't thought of a new idea. I just put them together for our situation. And that is called a ground lease. So the farmer, after a 3-year starter lease on a farm that still owns, they'll still receive the 40% reduction in the rent on the land, but they will now get a deed for the property, the buildings. So we do a fixture filing, they get the deed for the buildings, and now they are gaining equity in the buildings. The land still stays off the market, it's still rented, but they get to own the buildings. And we really like this idea, and the farmers who are doing it are thrilled with it. It comes in at very low cost for them at a monthly rate, and yet they can still have money and equity to count on when they need it. So we know in Iowa that we could actually feed every man, woman, and child a meat and potatoes diet if we just dedicated 50 miles around every major metro area to food production. Do we have any realtors in the room? Do we have any bankers in the room? Okay, do we have any, who else might care? Commercial development folks. Well, let me just suggest that I know that some other people have plans for the 50 miles around our growing cities, right? Maybe they don't want it in broccoli and cabbage. So we're coming up with a much less radical solution. Circle 10 of our cities with 10 sustainable permanent food farms in 10 years. That's all we're asking. Let's start there. We estimate that's 4,000 acres of land, a fraction of the land that's in corn and bean right now. And if we do that, I'll show you some of the impact we can have. I could go through this whole thing, but I don't have time, so you don't get to watch all the dots. Okay. But in the process of that, we could build a model for the nation. I actually think there's people in this room who could appreciate that. Most Iowans are like, nah, we can't do that. Iowa's got nothing to tell anybody. We're so self-effacing, right? But the truth is that right now, farmers, food farmers, outside of San Francisco and New York City are fighting it out with housing developers and very, very wealthy people who want to buy, acreages and put very big houses on it. They're battling it out with them to find enough land just to grow food. And guess what? Their profit margins aren't good enough to do that. Well, what if we could take our model and go to the planners and the local elected officials and say, plan for this. If you could plan for an airport, a golf course, or a city park in your planning, you can plan for these kind of farms because they're neighborhood friendly and they're nature friendly food farms. And guess what? When you put a farm like that in your community, all the houses around it and all the land around it, the value goes up. In planned communities like that are called agri-hoods, and you have one nearby here, when the farm is made permanently protected, the houses around it can sell for 35 to 45% more. So it actually increases the value of the homes while keeping that land protected so the farmer can still afford it. We think we could bring that model national. So this is where we are so far. This is our roadmap of how we're going. We did our proof of concept in 2021. We're now into 2022. We hired someone to circle Des Moines, but we are in the process of finding her replacement. We just received a major grant from the County of Dubuque, and we'll be hiring someone there. We're also seeking American Rescue Plan money here in Des Moines and in Lynn County to help support increase, double basically, the funds that we've already raised to circle those cities, at least to start for the next 3 years. And then we have to start matching those farmers because those are the stories we tell, right? You want to know who's farming these farms. Does anybody really want to do all that stoop labor, right? I know that older farmers are thinking we're a little bonkers. But they're really out there and they do want to do it, and the market is there. As I'm sure you all know, millennials are the largest portion of the workforce now, and millennials' priorities are what? Healthy food, healthy lifestyle. These kind of farms send that message to your millennial workforce. These are the kind of farms we're talking about. This is an orchard in southeast Iowa, Red Fern Farm. They're economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable. This farm nets $7,000 per acre. $7,000 per acre. For the non-farmers here, you're usually looking at about $400 an acre in corn, and you're tilling it up every year, and you're paying for all those inputs again every year. These trees, they're just there. Their biggest danger is deer. And it's a you-pick operation, so the farmers don't even pay for the labor of picking up the chestnuts. And I know chestnuts aren't very familiar for a lot of folks here, but they're huge in our new Americans coming to Iowa. Eastern Europeans, my family's from Turkey and Italy, big on chestnuts there all year round. So Mediterranean and Eastern Europeans eat chestnuts all the time. Italy, do we get many in Italy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
they sell them on the streets, they roast them in Turkey, they roast them on the streets. These are the kind of farms we're looking at. Imagine, environmentally speaking, if we had these kind of farms along our waterways. We call these working buffers. Now in Iowa, this is in upstate New York, so there's trees. In Iowa, we'd have prairie along the river, because who can argue with 17-foot grass roots? Those suckers hold soil where it belongs. So we would put prairie where it belongs along the river. But see, just inside, we can have working farms that are perennial, that don't disturb the soil. And then we can have some annual crops, because we've got to wait for those trees to grow up, right? And give us some fruit and nuts. So this is the kind of vision that we see along our waterways, and the kind of farming that we can see in Iowa. Just a little touch of this to help diversify our agriculture and our economy and cool the planet. When we run livestock through here, and we don't just put livestock in a place and let it eat all the trees, we move it through, just like it moves through in nature, just like the bison used to move through. We let it disturb the soil, we let it eat down the grass, and then we move it. And that's how we're sequestering carbon, and we're making a big impact on growing soil, and we're growing our meat at the same time. And we're keeping the weeds down. It's cheaper than a John Deere. Forgive me, there's a John Deere guy here. This is a chestnut orchard in Winfield, Iowa. Now this is a little overgrown. There's no grass beneath it. That tells us it's a little overgrown, a little too shady. But we were not going to tell that to the 91-year-old man who showed it to us, who planted that with his wife 25 years ago. But he did protect, and he wanted the city of Winfield to have the freedom to do what they needed to with this 5 acres. So he didn't protect this permanently, but he did protect another 130 acres outside of Washington, Iowa. It's all in prairie and trees now, but as soon as his older daughter, who is disabled, no longer needs the income from CRP, we have his permission to find a farmer for that land. He said, just don't mess up the soil too badly. That's what he really cared about. He passed away last year. This little orchard every year employs the people of Winfield to pick up the chestnuts, to bag the chestnuts, to label them, and to mail them all over the country. Job creating. Some people call it labor intensive. I guess it all depends on who you're talking to and what it's about, but it's also job creating. This is a young man who, as soon as he heard about Silt, gave me a call. We hadn't even put up a website yet, and he called me. And he said, I've given up on Iowa. I had just given up on Iowa and left to Wisconsin. It's too industrial there. I can't grow food the way I want to. And I called him for the next 3 years trying to get him back, but he won't come back. And that's just a shame. This is Kim Alexander. He's up in northwest Iowa. This is how he raises his meat. Very happy cows. He literally has names. I don't think you're supposed to name your meat, but he actually names his meat. He does. I don't think that's a good thing. Anyway, so that's our vision for Des Moines. We wanted to make sure you knew. I have the date wrong there. We're having an event at Noche on November 9th, not November 10th. That's our board meeting, sorry. We are hiring now, so if you know some people who might be interested in networking with landowners in the rural Polk County area, please send them to silt.org or send them to me, SUZAN@silt.org. We're always seeking corporate partners who want to brand themselves with an innovative, climate-friendly organization that's out there making permanent change on the landscape. So that's it. I want to leave time for questions. Did I talk too long? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
First off, thank you. This is awesome. I'm excited about it. Is Middlebrook partnered with you guys, or they're just?
No, I mean, if Steve's not here, I'm taking credit, okay? Because Molly Aronowitz was on our founding board.
Okay.
And I think that might have been where they first heard about AgriHoods. So Steve has chosen not to tie down the use of the farm as a permanent farm. He's got the right idea, but he probably won't see the same kind of returns that he would if his realtors could sell it as a permanent viewscape.
Well, and the other thing is, I am a realtor. Not all of us want people outside the city. I try to fit back into this.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for doing it. We love infilling too. I'm just not one of those people that's going to think after 50 years of fighting sprawl that anyone's going to succeed at that. So I'm like, well, okay, so why don't we just put the farms, grab the farms while we can. You go ahead and build your houses around them. At least we'll have a sense of community and a sense of place that people will come to and spend their money, but also spend their time and raise their kids. Right behind you.
Wonderful presentation. I want to know, where's the AgriHood that you mentioned?
The AgriHood. There's one incoming, so that would be the Steve Brewer one. But we were intricately involved with the one in Lynn County, Dow's Farm. We were actually on the ignition committee for the design, and we carried it all the way through. And then at the very end, the county supervisors, I had too much chocolate. That's rich stuff. The county supervisors decided they wanted a local elected party to manage the easement, so we handed it over to the soil and water commissioners and then taught them how to do it, and they got it set up. So we take credit for having protected it though, because there was a time during those late discussions when we were getting held, the bunch of us were getting held over the barrel about a purchase agreement, and and to me, I just got up in front of the soups and said, I don't care who protects it, it's got to be protected. Because, you know, the houses are right there. In 20 years, you know, the farm would be gone. And all those people who bought a mortgage, paid for a mortgage based on this farm, would have houses in their backyard in 20 years. So we wanted to make sure that didn't happen. But yeah, those are the two going in Iowa at the moment. And you?
I heard a story on NPR, I think yesterday, about diversity and inclusion in the farming communities, people who are actually doing the work. So is there any integration with that and welcoming diverse backgrounds of people who are actually going to be running those farms?
Yes, and forgive me, I was supposed to repeat the question. So this one was about halfway through, about diversity and inclusion on the farms, right? Yes, it's actually built, it's kind of baked in. I've worked with a lot of young farmers these days, and I can tell you, and a lot of them are my daughter's age, so I kind of get the hang of it. And I have a little bit of a rant, It's about able-bodied, college-educated young white people who have a lot of other choices. You know, they don't have to do grunt work and 17-hour days on a farm if they decide that it's not what they want to do. They can go off and find an air-conditioned job somewhere, right? But a lot of other people don't have those choices. New Americans, refugees, and others who came from agrarian backgrounds and just want access to land to raise their kids, show their kids what they used to eat when they grew up, or African Americans who would like to do the same, you know. And they don't mind us coming by once a year to check on everything and make sure everything's copacetic so we can honor the landowner and follow our own due diligence. They don't have a problem with that. So I actually think by the nature of the beast, we will end up diversifying our landscape with these new Americans. That's not to say anything against the other folks. It's just that there's some folks that they do this because they have a need and a passion. And there's others who do it because they want to try it out. The ones with the need and the passion, I think, will be more likely people of color in the future. Yes?
So I'm trying to understand the correlation with organic. So is there a mandate that, I understand there's a financial incentive, but is there a requirement that the farmers choose organic?
So the question is there a requirement to be organic? And I'm going to guess you mean like a small O organic as opposed to a certified organic, which is a different thing. We actually give farmers a number of options that they can choose from of third-party certifications, but there is a requirement that the land moves slowly towards. Now, we didn't get here in a day. We don't expect to fix it in a day. But the land has to move slowly towards a lower dependence on synthetic chemicals and a higher dependence on healthy soil biology. And we watch that over the years. And then eventually they get their certification. And we don't want to become the certifiers. So the farmers who were our founders said, let's just give them a menu of certifications. And as these things come around and there are more and more, they can choose, they can bring one to us too if they think it's legitimate. But we have to balance our own integrity with the legitimacy of the certification without being too overbearing. So that's what we do. Yes?
Everyone talks about climate change and water quality, and you're actually doing something about it, and I commend you for that.
Oh, thank you.
How many acres do you have kind of around the state?
Yeah, we're 7 years old and we have over 1,100, oh, I'm sorry, how many acres do we have? And we're getting commended for actually doing something about climate change and water quality. I'm glad to repeat that, thank you. Yes, so we have over 1,100 acres on 14 farms around the state. In every section of the state, I think maybe except southwest, which we're working on. And we have everything from 11 acres to 170 acre farms. Yes, sir.
Just as a follow-up, procedurally, how would someone approach you about taking, I'm assuming, part of their farm and putting it into this program, title transfer, sort of legally speaking, how all that works?
Okay, so this is a question about procedure. If somebody wants to approach us about protecting their farm. We have a really sweet little to-do list that's color-coded on who does what, the land trust and the landowner. But basically, we're looking for landowners who can afford to reduce the value of their farm or take the tax deduction or whatever, and who have a passion for this mission. I always tell people, for the lawyers in the room, I'll tell you, I always tell people there's easier ways to hide your money from the government than a conservation easement, so don't use us for that. But they come to us, and I had 2 of these calls yesterday, and they say, here's my situation, and then we find out if they've got a next generation waiting for that money or anything like that. But once we've cleared the decks and they're ready to go, we have them do an appraisal. Ethically, we can't pay for that appraisal. They do appraisal both for the highest best use and for the use with the easement on it, the value with easement on it. That comes to that 35-40% difference. That's what they take to their CPA to see about the tax deduction stuff. We don't make any promises about that. And if they don't want any tax deduction, we don't even need an appraisal. And then we do our own due diligence. We do what's called a baseline documentation report. So we walk the property, we take photos, we check soil reports, we check the history, make sure there's no toxic dumps hiding anywhere. And if there are, we make sure we know it. And then it's quite simple after that. We agree on the easement, we sign off on it, and then we record it. Now, sometimes they just give us the deed. That's almost, what's the word, anticlimactic. The first time we got a farm, it was so anticlimactic. We just sat at the lawyer's office and they signed one piece of paper and they give it to us. That was it. Like, No, there has to be more. This is like a $500,000 gift. No, that's it, girl. That's a deed. That's it. Now your name's on it. Okay, so it really can be quite simple. But we have to do our own diligence. Is the parcel large enough to protect against the surrounding uses and still grow food? That's usually the biggest question. If it's going to be an acre in the middle of what's going to be a strip mall, probably not. That kind of thing. So it usually takes a couple months from start to finish on something that's already been decided. It's ready to go. Yes?
So you mentioned that the state tax credit is somewhat tenuous from year to year in the legislature. Is that the kind of thing that the Farm Bureau tries to come after, or I can't see the Farm Bureau necessarily liking this?
Yeah, we are, does the Farm Bureau come after the state tax credit? I don't know who the enemies of the state tax credit are. It could be the local auditors and recorders, I'm not sure. But I can tell you that we're the land trust not like the other ones, because all we do is protect farms to stay as farms. And so if they're going after the state tax credit to get rid of us, it doesn't make much sense, right? We're keeping farms in farming. And more of these young people are getting more involved in the Farm Bureau and at the local level, which is turning heads. They had a pretty cool conference just last year in Cedar Rapids about specialty crops, which is what the USDA calls food, guys. Talk about feeling marginalized, right? So I actually see, some hope there on the horizon. I'm not exactly sure. Actually, it'll be a moot point when state taxes are just gone, which is probably the direction we're going in, when state income tax has been eliminated.
Is the credit property tax or
No, it's an income tax credit, yeah. And the federal is an income tax credit, of course. And by the way, it's a 100% deduction for farmers at the federal level for up to 16 years and a 50% deduction for landowners. And I only say that as someone who's describing the law to you, not making promises or advising. If you get tired of me saying that, too bad, because I gotta keep saying it. I'm not a CPA or lawyer, and most importantly, I'm not your CPA or lawyer, which is what I usually say. All right, other questions? I'm very excited about the interest here, by the way. Please take a brochure. The narrow ones are just aimed at landowners. The bigger ones are kind of our general brochure. And if you're interested in volunteering with SILT, we have a few things. Like I said, we have an August 7th, Science Iowa is doing this very cool environmental walk on the Raccoon River Park. And we're gonna have a table there and try to come up with a kid-centric silt-related thing. We usually do little seeds in pots, but August is a right time for that. So if you have any ideas, let us know. We have the event at Noche. We'd love to see you at it. It's a free event. We just get you snockered and then ask you for money. Actually, we don't even get you snockered. You have to buy your own drinks. That's a pretty good deal for us. And we're just really, my oldest friend in my life was a man I knew since I was 18. He was my first teaching assistant at the University of Iowa. And he died just a few weeks ago, rather suddenly. And I got to see him in hospice right before he was gone. And he was a Rotarian from Iowa City. And he had dementia for 5 years, but for 2 years it was undiagnosed. And for those first 3 years, he kept telling me, I need to get you to my Rotary Club. And of course he kept forgetting. And so he's gone, but I'm actually working on getting scheduled to meet there. So I now have a much fonder place in my heart in general, just for Rotarians, because I know how much he loved his Rotary in Iowa City. So thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you so much, Susan, for spending time with our club and for sharing such an interesting and informative presentation. We are donating a book in your honor through this is the last time I have to say this, Rotary Rosie Reader Van. I love the van, it's just those words, Anyway, through the Des Moines Public Library Foundation, last year our club, through the foundation, donated $40,000 to purchase the van through our community grant program. So thank you. So now it's almost time. If you read at any point, and if you didn't, that's fine too. But most weeks I wrote a little note from the president for the bulletin, and I had set at the beginning of my Rotary year sort of my personal motto of intentional gratitude. And I found, obviously we have many things going on in our world, and we have that have been challenging, and I think sometimes, rightfully so, sometimes that's where our focus is. But goodness, I'm gonna start crying. That's ridiculous. I told my husband this morning, I'm like, I'm not gonna cry. Why would I cry? But I think sometimes we focus on all of the troubles, whether they be, personal, community, state, national, or international. And I think sometimes we forget all of those things. All of those things that we have to be grateful for. And so I wanted to do that for myself personally, not necessarily to suggest that as a Rotary theme we all needed to do that, but there are so many things with Rotary and with all of you, each and every one of you, that I'm grateful for. So personally it was gratifying just to focus on the things that I'm grateful for, and I really am grateful for each and every one of you. Sorry. So you don't have to see me sniveling up here anymore. Now I'm going to quickly pivot to Matt. It is my honor and delight to welcome my friend and our new president, Matt Busick. Matt, welcome to your year as president of Rotary Club of Des Moines. You've already seen things from Matt. He's off to a gangbuster start with his initiative of 22 and 22, which takes every single one of us to invite new promising Rotarians to our club. So with that, Matt, here's the gavel. I hope you enjoy your year as much as I've enjoyed mine.
Okay. Bear with me a second. Now, what's going to be fun about this year is I do this happy dance, because everybody knows I have a spinal cord injury. So if I start doing the jiggle, we're going to have to come up with something that takes everybody's attention off of it. So we can move on. Catherine, thank you for your steady leadership and inspiring example. Your year as president will surely be remembered for how you persistently reminded us to note how our lives are extraordinary. That we should slow down and take note of the gifts of our everyday lives and be grateful for this miracle. Catherine, we are truly grateful for you. Thank you for your service. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Des Moines, it's my great honor to give you several tokens of our appreciation for your tireless service. And so, Kitty, how are we going to do this? Do I just describe them?
Yeah, just describe them.
Okay, everybody. I'm going to describe 4 things that we're giving Catherine. The first is a past president's name badge. I know that's important to you. You want it to be back. The second is a president's pin. Kitty tells me that it has a diamond, an actual diamond embedded in it. And guess what? It's real. And in my world, and Skeet's world, and Don's world, I think I saw anyone else who's in investments, that's a nice inflation hedge. So hold on to that. There's also a commemorative plaque that comes your way. Is it hidden? No, I don't.
It's
Okay,
over
so
there,
it's
too.
over there on the
It's in the
table.
box.
I'm sure that you're going to find a place to display that proudly. We certainly hope that you can find a spot for it. And finally, your board has given you a night out on the town and proof. But we're hoping that you can break bread with your family or close friends and enjoy that time, because you certainly deserve it. And now, on to Rotary year 2022-2023. Can we unfurl the banner now?
It's up.
Is it already unfurled?
It's sticking out there.
So you're going to leave me to do that? Can you come up here?
Yeah,
I can.
Jordan, you want-
Yeah. Jordan, please unfurl the banner. There we go. All right. So for 2022-2023, the Rotary motto will be Imagine Rotary. I'm humbled by the fact that you collectively saw something in me that suggested I could serve as this club's president. I vow to do all I can to carry on the good work of our club, and I thank you, sincerely thank you for this opportunity to serve.
As I think about this year's motto, here's what I imagine: a club in renewal. All of us working together to put the pandemic behind us, growing, 22 and 22, and thriving. As we all know, it takes more than one person to run this club. What we do is multifaceted and complex. So at this time, could anyone who's here today and served on Catherine's board, please stand? So that would be the 2021-2022 board. All right, if everyone could please acknowledge these folks. And then, if most of you have to remain standing, how about 2022-2023 board? Could you please stand? So we are adding 3 new people: Kathy Cody, Jason Stuyvesant, and Paul Johnson to the board, and then bringing back Tim Lilwitz, who is our Sergeant at Arms. Welcome back, Tim.
Thank you.
Looking forward to next year. Okay, on to what's next. Guess what? Next week we're off. So how's that for a ringing beginning? We don't even have to come back for the first week. Enjoy your Independence Day, everyone. Make sure you remain grateful for this great country we live in. Next would be July 14th. That will be Christy Naus from the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines. And on the 21st, we'll do our Police and Firefighter of the Year Awards. Thank you to our guests. I want to mention one person who wasn't here when Catherine acknowledged guests. My wife, Betsy, could please stand. So I really appreciate Betsy and Elena and Viola. I think everybody knows that I got to Rotary because I did what she did. At 17, I left this great country and went to the country of Denmark as a Rotary Youth Exchange student, and I've loved Rotary ever since. And so it's really quite something to have you here on the day that I take over as president. Thanks, Viola.
And my dad was Rotarian watching.
Oh, that's right. And I need to acknowledge, and see, this is why you're here. The spouse always keeps you on track. So Betsy's dad is a, 50-plus year Rotarian in a small town of Guttenberg, Iowa. And that club is the club that sponsored me outbound. So it all comes full circle. I would like to also thank Jamie and Mike. Oh my gosh, if I could make it to 25 and 43 years in this club, I will be so grateful, and thank you for your service. Catherine, thank you. We are adjourned.